Some of you again, and all of you new to our trainings. So today we're going to talk about transition planning. Let me just move it to the next slide. There we go. What is transition planning? So it's planning that takes place for special education students to figure out what it is they're going to do when they leave high school. Do they have an employment goal? Do they want to go to college? Do they how do they want to live in the community? How do they want to participate in the community? So the transition plan is put together. It could be, you could call an IEP meeting and then talk about the IEP issues and also the transition planning at the same time, or you can call just a separate meeting to put together the transition plan. And when you're starting to think about this transition plan, you also have to start thinking about, well, who do you want to invite to this meeting or meetings? If you're a regional center client, you're going to want to invite the regional center because the regional center can offer things to the student. Also, if there's an employment goal, you're going to want to invite the Department of Rehabilitation. And transition planning has to start no later than age 16. There are districts that start as early as age 14. If you don't know whether your district starts at transition planning at 14, 15, 16, just ask and they'll let you know. So let's talk about the different agencies involved in transition planning. So for special education, that is for students who are eligible for special ed from ages 3 and up to 22. And then we have the regional center. It's for persons who meet the criteria to become regional center clients. And they are persons with certain developmental disabilities. And from ages 0 to 3, kids may be in what's called early start. Early start is administered by the regional center. So you would be talking to the regional center about early start services. At age 3, the child might or might not become eligible to become a regional center client and receive services through the regional center. Sometimes there are children who are younger than 3 who become regional center clients because it's obvious that through the regional center that they are going to be eligible to be regional center clients at age 3. And you can be a regional center client until you die. There's no age limit as long as you meet the criteria to be a regional center client. And then we've got the Department of Rehabilitation for persons with disabilities, age 16 and over. And we're going to discuss some services that are available to students through the Department of Rehab, through the Skill District, through the Regional Center. So we're going to go ahead and start with the school district, and I'm going to pass it on to Mary.
Thank you, Maria. Hello, everyone. Maria, as everybody indicated, my name is Mary Rios. I'm one of the senior advocates. So first, we're going to talk about the individual transition plan, also known as an ITP. And this basically, it should take place no later than the student turning 16. So prior to or close to the age of 16, they should actually do what's called the assessment transition assessments. And these assessments are completed to determine where the student is academically, to see if the student needs any additional supports prior to the ones that they were receiving before. And if there are any new services or supports that are needed to assist them in reaching these goals. So they describe and they should focus on the strengths and the interest of the student. The individualized transition plan should include measurable goals in the different areas that the student, when they're developing the transition plan. They should also include the services to support those goals, whether it be out in the community, if they have a vocational goal, or if they have independent living goals. And again, it should be based on the assessments. The assessments are what drive the supports and services that the student needs. So it's really important to pay attention to the assessments, and also keep in mind that when the school district does the assessments, if you don't agree to the assessments, you can request independent assessments. The school district has two options. They either approve the independent assessments, or they would have to file for due process and show that the assessments that they completed were appropriate assessments. Next
So
slide.
Mary, I have a
Yes.
question. So it's not only for the transition assessment, it could be any assessment that the school does, right?
That's correct, yes.
Right.
And in order for a parent to ask for an independent assessment, the school does have the right to assess first. So if the school is doing an occupational assessment, a speech therapy assessment, any assessment, if you ever disagree with those assessments, you certainly have the right to request an independent assessment. Yes, Maria, thank you.
Thank you.
Next slide. So what should be included in the transition plan? First, goals. Identify whether you have an employment goal, if you have an education goal, if you want to attend college or a training program. If the individual needs independent living skills, those goals should also be written into the transition plan. They should include instructional services. You know, if the student has a community, wants to experience some activities out in the community, those excuse me, those goals should also be written in the ITP. If there are employment related objectives, they should include what supports and services does the student need to meet those goals. Any related services such as speech, occupational therapy, career guidance, transportation, counseling, any supports and services that the student needs. And it's really important to talk to the student prior to reaching the age 16, getting them involved, asking them, you know, looking to see what their interests are. What is it that they want to do out in the community? Do they want to participate in independent living skills? There's also independent living centers throughout the state of California that can offer some of these services. They provide assistance like money management, how to open a bank account, how to use public transportation. So there are agencies that provide these services, and it's just a matter of connecting to them, and we can certainly provide the link to where you can find that information. Next slide. So here we have an example of an individualized transition plan. As you can see, it indicates age-appropriate transition assessments, what instruments were used during the assessments, and it describes the goals that the student may have. So if, for example, if they have a vocational goal, they should include that on the transition plan. It should indicate what agencies are involved. If they're, like Maria said, if they're a regional center client, you want to invite the regional center to see what supports and services they can offer to assist the student in reaching their goal. If they have a vocational goal, they want to invite the Department of Rehabilitation These are agencies that can assist them with providing additional supports and services if they qualify for those services. So they can include the activities that they want to do out in the community. And the transition plan should be very specific in terms of who's going to be involved, what is it that the student wants to do, what their goals are, what their interests are. So it's important to have, again, these conversations with the student before they reach that age to try to ascertain what their likes are and what their dislikes are. I think it's really important. In here, we have another section, depending on what it is that they want to do, whether they have a vocational goal and higher education, if they want to go to college, career awareness, work experience. They also have work experience programs. There's different programs that are available through the Department of Rehabilitation and also with the regional center if they need job coaching. There's job coaching that can be provided. So these are supports and services. And you may want to look and see what the Department of Rehabilitation offers. Maybe there is a specific program that the student wants to be involved in. You know, they also assist if not only a vocational goal or a career goal, if a student wants to be self-employed, start a business, these are things and ideas that the student can come up with if these are their interests. So they should indicate that upon completion of school, I will, and then they itemize what their goals are and they list the supports and services that they will provide to the student.
So Mary, how would you recommend a parent proceed in the following situation? Let's say that I talked to my son and when we put the transition plan together, he wasn't interested in any type of career goal or work goal. He wasn't interested in working. And then a year goes by and now he's talking about, maybe working or going to school and learning something so that he can work. Can I call an ITP meeting and
Absolutely, Maria.
okay.
I mean, everybody they change their mind from time to time. I would certainly request an ITP. You can call an IEP meeting now to address any changes if services need to be changed. And like Maria said, if you change your mind and let's say you don't want to pursue anything, but later a year goes by and you change your mind, you can certainly request an ITP meeting to address, and include any goals and supports and services that the student may have.
Thank you, Mary.
Sure. I am actually going to pause before I turn it over to Maricruz.
Thank you. So again, my name is Maricruz, and we're going to start talking about getting into the arena of the regional center. And so Mary was talking about the school system, and the school system has a contract with student parent to provide services, and that is called the IEP. Well, the regional center has something that is very similar, and the name for its individual program plan, and we refer to it as an IPP. So this is, again, a contract between the client and the regional center about the services that the regional center is going to provide, and it includes the goals for the client. So the IPP should include goals related to transition services. For example, if a client wants to work in a competitive integrated employment, live in the community, go to college. So that has to be specified in the client's IPP, and that is gonna direct the kind of services that the client is going to be getting. Now, there are some restrictions on services for transition age students. Mary earlier was talking about students who receive a diploma. They exit the school system at age 18, and students who do not receive a diploma, instead they get a certificate of completion, they stay with the school system until the age of 22. So for the period of 18 to 22, for students who are still within the special education system, the regional center, it's limited on the kind of services that they can provide to them. And we're going to be talking more about that in a little bit. So this, every client of the regional center, they have a service coordinator. They might have a different name, and depending on the regional centers, in the regional center you're in. And the role of the service coordinator is to help you coordinate the services that you're going to be getting through the regional center system, but also to help you advocate for services from the school district and or the Department of Rehabilitation if those are relevant to your goals. So also the regional center is required to help families secure transition services from the school district. And typically what we hear is that sometimes clients have a hard time either getting services from the school and or from the regional center system. And the regional center simply says something like, you have to get it through them. Well, they have to make sure they give you the support and advocacy to access those services. Now, generic resources, it's have very commonly used. I'm honest, I don't want to, for a lack of a better word, excuse from the regional center sometimes to provide services. So the regional center, it's obligated to access generic resources that would otherwise be available through generic agencies. And these agencies that provide generic resources are typically those that receive federal funding, such as schools. We do have other examples of generic resources and agencies that would be Medi-Cal or Medicare, in-home supported services, the Department of Rehabilitation, and again, the school district. All of these agencies receive federal funding. And so if there is a service that is available through any of them, the regional center is obligated to get those, help the client get those services through these agencies before they can pay for it. They are considered the payer of last resort, meaning if there's no one else to pay for it, then it's the regional center's responsibility to pay for it. The regional center can also help you. They can pay for services while you are pursuing to get the services through generic agencies, and that it's typically known as gap funding. So for example, if you're going through an appeal process with the school, the services, the determination whether the school is responsible to provide a service or not will not come in right away. But if the child or the student need that service immediately, the regional center can provide gap funding to pay for that service while you are going through the appeals process.
And Maricruz, what's really important about gap funding is that that service needs to be in the IPP. So that's why if the services are not in the IPP and that contract between the consumer, which we call the regional center client, and the regional center doesn't have to provide it. So really important.
Yes, and also if the service is not in there, it only means you need to call an IEP and make sure you put it in. So the IPP, it's not set in stone. It can be changed as needed. Now we're going to look at some of the services that some of the transition services that the regional center provides. And this list is very limited. We just list a few here, but when we talk about services, we really, if the service does not exist, the regional center can create it. That's as much as I can say. So I just want to say that there is no limit to the list. So living arrangements for after the client turns 18. And that could mean the client might choose to live with the family, which would be great. And if they need any kind of support on that, the regional center can certainly support the client on it, but the client can also choose to live independently. They can choose to share a house with someone else. If they need any kind of community living setting, the regional center can help with that. Support for independence, recreation, financial assistance, trainings, advocacy and information, and again, much more depending on the needs of the client.
And I wanted to say that what you see down here, WIC means Welfare and Institutions Code. This is the state law. It's the code sections that relate to regional centers and all that we're talking about is called the Lanterman Act, but it's a series of codes, this one being one of them. And when you go to section 4512B, it'll towards the middle of a very large paragraph, it says, and services provided by the regional center include but are not limited to, and it starts to, there's so many services that are listed. So what Maricruz says is really important. If it doesn't exist, it could be created to satisfy the need and what's in the IPP.
Thank you, Maria. So again, we're going to talk about some of the services, not all of them. So supported living services. So this kind of setting is provided for people with developmental disabilities so they can live independently in their own home or apartment. SLS cannot be denied to anyone based solely in the nature or severity of the disability. SLS must be tailored to the needs and preferences of the client. There are requirements to for receiving SLS. So in order for a person to qualify for this for this service, must be at least 18 years old or older. There must be an express directly through the advocate or preference for SLS, and it must be in the IPP. So again, important to make sure that is included in there. And the client or the individual are living in a home of their own or that they rent. And just to mention, there is an exemption to this. We're going to be covering it in a little bit. So to determine if a person would be a good candidate for an SLS, the Department of the Regional Center could conduct assessments, help in finding and maintaining a home, this is one of the exemptions to you must own or rent. So if you are interested in supported living services, the Regional Center can help you secure that apartment or that home for you to live independently. Development of employment goals, social behavior and daily living skills, training, hiring, and firing if necessary. So individuals who live in supported living services, they have providers that come and help them with things like medication, if they need any kind of behavioral support. And so if so they have to hire vendors to provide this kind of services, and typically the Regional Center helps with this system. It could be a family member, and it could be and it is the client who directs these services. And they can also help with facilitate participation in the community. So we're going to continue talking about assessing supported living services, and owning a home. So the IPP process determines eligibility. I talk about the regional center contracts with vendors. I think I got a little bit ahead of myself on that. And yeah, they could be hired through the regional center. It could be a family member. In order for a family member to be a provider, there has to be an approval from the IEP team. It is not recommended to assume that the regional center, even if there has been an identified need for any particular service, that you can hire someone to start providing the service without having the IPP team approval, because I mean, it might be very difficult to get reimbursement if it has not been approved. And the client coordinate the services. Regional centers cannot pay consumers rent, mortgage, lease, or household expenses. And there, like with everything else, there are exemptions to it. They might be able to do this, pay or supplement rent and mortgage if the payments are required to meet the unique needs and the specific care needs, and as described in the IPP addendum, meaning if the client needs help with paying for rent or mortgage in order to be able to access the services described in the IPP. And that's why documenting it's so important. Another exemption to this is if the needs or condition of the client present a risk to the health and safety of the consumer or another person. And one of the typical examples that I often hear on this particular one, I often get calls from clients who are extremely aggressive, and the family is not able to continue to properly support them in their own home. And so, and there might not be appropriate placements such as a group home available. So SOS is often one of the options that is provided by the regional center, where they would hire adequate staff to provide the services that that the client needs in an apartment or in a home that the regional center can help them secure. So another one of the services for adults that the regional
power backup.
I'm sorry, did I hear something?
I don't think it was for us. I think
Okay.
I just want to remind people to to mute themselves. Thank you.
Okay. So independent living services provides skills that a person needs to learn to live independently in the community. And so a client can receive ILS services in any kind of setting, as opposed to an SOS, where you have to live independently in order to get this kind of service. For ILS, you can receive this service even when you're living with your family, or if you're living in your own home, the home of a friend or a relative, or even if you live in a licensed facility, you can still get independent living services. So independent living programs provide and coordinate ILS services. These are programs that can teach clients many different skills depending on what they're interested in, and it could include things like cooking, cleaning, shopping, meal prep, money management, use of public transportation, community resource awareness, police, fire, and emergency, home and community safety, and much more. I think in the service there's also place for the client to really identify what is it that that the client needs in order to be more integrated into the community and to learn independent living skills. And the requirement for this particular service is, again, client must be an adult over the age of 18. And it has been identified that the client is interested in independent living services, and that will help the client to achieve greater independence while living with someone else. Okay, competitive integrative employment, CIE. This is a term that is used a lot by the Department of Rehabilitation, and what it means is that we are particularly talking about employment, and so when the client has a goal for employment, in order for it to be considered integrative employment, it must be a real job with real wages, a job where a person makes minimum wage or more. And it is in the same kind of settings as people without disabilities work. And it could be an office, it could be in a hospital, it could be in the store. There are opportunities for promotions and to grow within the company that you're working with. So the regional center, it also has an important role in implementing competitive employment. So the Employment First mandate, it was incorporated into the Land-Term Act in 2013. So the regional center must give high priority for working age individuals with developmental disabilities, regardless of severity of the disability. So the fact that a person is a regional center client does not mean that that person cannot work and cannot be working in a competitive integrative employment. So that always has to be the first option considered by the planning team. So there always has to be a question about what is it that you want in regards to career or vocation. So the individual must choose the goal, and it could be competitive integrative employment, or it could be something different. So it has to be individualized and geared to meet the needs of the client. So it might also include post-secondary education, technical or vocational training, and internship programs might be considered as a means to achieve integrated competitive employment or career advancement. And we do have the welfare and institution codes for each and every one of these prongs. Just wanted to mention that. So paid internships. Under Welfare and Institution Code 4870, little a, 1 through 4, paid internship programs are administered by the regional center providers. So if this is something that a client is interested on, I would recommend that they start talking to the counselor or the service coordinator about paid internships, so that a goal about it could be added into the IPP. And it is available to consumers 18 and older. And if a consumer is still attending school, that the paid internship, it's also available to them. So, and what it is that the regional center must pay for all the employment related costs of the internship. There is a limit on the number of hours of the internship. So clients can work up to 1,040 hours per year of internship. And they can get support to find and keep the internship. So if the client needs any kind of support in order to be able to perform at the internship, the regional center could provide that support. So there are certain transition services that the regional center can provide. And we're going to go back a little bit to the age between 18 and 22 for individuals who are still within the school system. So if the individual is still eligible for special education and has not received a diploma or certificate of completion, the regional center is there from funding 5 types of transition services with a few exemptions. So the regional center cannot pay for a day program, vocational education, work services, independent living programs, and mobility trainings for those that are still within the school system. Consumers who have left the school system might be asked to return to the school system to obtain those services. So if we have a student who's 19 years old and decided not to continue within the school system, and they go to the regional center and say, I was not happy with the services I was getting from the school system, so I am asking the regional center to fund a day program. The regional center, it's probably gonna ask them to return to the school system to obtain that service. Now, if there was any particular reason, or if the school services were not meeting the needs of the client, that could be an argument to ask for the regional center to fund that service. But it is not, they probably will have to go through an appeal and show how the services through the school were not available or were not appropriate. And that's part of the exemptions in order for the regional center to fund for this service. And it has to be determined that your needs cannot be met by the education system and participation in paid internship programs. So if the regional center must give you information about the exemptions if you are in a situation such as the one I described. So if you're saying, well, no, the school services are not appropriate or they are not meeting the needs of the student, therefore we want the regional center to pay for it. There is a process to appeal that, and you can ask your regional center for it. That's all we have on the regional center, and we're gonna pause for any.
Let's talk about the Department of Rehabilitation. So the Department of Rehabilitation has what is called pre-employment transition services. We're going to call it pre-ETS services. And the Department of Rehab has what is called, just like the school district has an IEP, the regional center has an IPP, Department of Rehab has an individualized plan for employment, so an IPE.
Maria?
Yes?
Oh, never mind. I was gonna say I didn't switch to the next page. You just did it though. Okay.
So what is pre-ETS? It's a set of services that are available to students with disabilities under the age of 22. And what you need to do is invite the DOR to your transition plan or meetings. So what are those services? This is the first category of services, job exploration counseling. Look, when we're teenagers, we may not necessarily know what we're going to do with our lives, but, you know, and like I think Marty Cruz said, you don't have to have a specific work goal in mind. You might express an interest, and that's enough. But so job exploration, you're going to be able as a student to talk about different options, maybe listen to speakers that come and talk about different careers, learn about the job market. DOR can help with career assessments, provide mentors. So that's the first set of services. And then the second one is work-based learning experiences. So job shadowing, you can have someone follow you. You can follow someone. So if I'm a student and I have work-based learning experience, job shadowing, I just shadow someone who's doing the job I may be interested in, or maybe I'll volunteer so that I can learn more about the job, or do a paid internship. Or summer jobs. The next set of services is called career counseling, post-secondary educational opportunities. So they're going to talk to you about different schools. Maybe you're interested in certain universities or colleges, or you want to go to trade school, and they'll give you information on that, about taking college level classes to get you to the school that you want to get to, talk to you about summer programs, visit campuses, and that sort of thing. The other service that's available is work readiness training. So teach you social skills, teach you how to understand instructions, how to be punctual, and how to plan, how to get ready for work, how to get to work. How are you going to get to work? Helping you with your resume and interviewing skills. So there's a whole host of services that are available through pre-ETS. And then the other one, the last set of services, is instruction on self-advocacy. Learn to be more confident, how to make choices, know what your rights are, learn about the community resources that are out there. And if you're denied a service, you know, how to challenge a decision. These are all really important. So we have some tips for drafting a transition plan. It's always really important. And it's not only for transition plans, it could be for IEPs or IPPs. Specific language about your goals, your plans. What are those short-term goals? What are those long-term goals? What agencies are going to help you with the services that you're going to need to achieve those short-term goals or long-term goals? All of that should be in the plan. All of those people should be at the table, all those agencies, and what those agencies' roles are, timelines for when the goals should be accomplished. Also, I would include, you know, interim timelines to make sure that you're reaching those goals. Obviously, if any services, we always say, if any services are denied, request a notice of action, because the notice of action will tell you your rights to appeal a denial from one of these agencies. And a good plan will be a good transition plan is specific to the person, the student, concrete goals that are achievable, realistic timelines. It reflects the person's choices, and hopefully it reflects high expectations, because why can't we have high expectations? It includes supports and dates to review. Sometimes when you're dealing with multiple agencies, as some of you may know, you know, you're being bounced back and forth from agency. The regional center is telling you, no, you need to get that from DOR. DOR is telling you, no, you need to get that from the school district, whatever it is. So we say, just figure out what services you need and who's going to provide them, pay for them, obviously. Make sure everyone's at the meeting. If there's a denial, again, ask for a notice of action. And if you need more advice, just contact us or the Office of Clients' Rights Advocates. The Office of Client Rights Advocates is our sister organization. There's a client's rights advocate for every regional center and an assistant client rights advocate. They are not employees of the regional center. They are They are part of us. They're there to advocate for regional center clients and people who want to become regional center clients. How to contact us, us or the Office of Client Rights Advocates. You're going to get this information. And Lonnie, I also want to include the Office of the Ombudsman as a resource for people with regard to the regional center. And if you don't have it, I can give it to you. So we quickly went through the rest of the presentation because we want to make sure we can address as many questions as possible in the time that we have.